Well, let's talk about the CONCACAF Champions League because I alluded to it before our first break. And we'll start with the one that went first. Austin FC went down to Haiti and ended up losing 3-0. And again, it was another performance from Austin FC where a player, Amro Tarek, who just got beat to 2 headers. You know, he could do a little bit better defensively there. Then he had one of the craziest own goals of all time where the ball popped out and he tried to clear it out wide. And it was a side netting volley, which was pretty sick. And so Austin FC has 2 losses so far out of 3 games this season. And you could really pinpoint one player that kind of sabotaged them in the game against St. Louis in their opening game of MLS. And then in this game, another defender that didn't do particularly well. But they had Nick Lima, who usually plays right back and has caps for the U.S. playing at right back. He was playing center back. So they were definitely thin in some different areas. Sebastian Driussi didn't play. But Josh Wolf, the coach, came out and said that he takes responsibility for it. They just weren't mentally prepared to go down into a hostile environment and get a result. Like, it's not – and we'll talk about the other ones that went down to Tigres and went down to Alianza and did grind out the results. And that was Orlando City and Philadelphia Union, respectively. But Austin, this was their first ever time to play in a tournament outside of MLS, and they didn't show very well, Heath Pierce.
Yeah, remember how I just went through this story about like you sub at halftime because you know it's not going to get better. And then this was an example of it not getting better because 2 minutes into the next half, there was that own goal. And that was one of the most wild own goals where it wasn't like sliding into your own goal to clear a ball away or like it bumps off of you or deflects or, you know, one of these things. I mean, that was a straight with enough time to put it anywhere. You put it back, side netting into your own goal. That was rough. But you're right. I think the hardest part for anybody that hasn't played in CONCACAF or in a diverse range of environments, you go anywhere south of the United States of America, whether that's the Caribbean, whether that's Central South America, it's a different environment. It's a different level of passion. It's a different level of hostility. It's not always that way, but it can be. And Major League Soccer being that it is that with Liga MX, the sort of gold standard in terms of where people want to play, the quality of life on the field, off the field, that people bring a little something extra.
Yeah, they do. They do.
And it's something that you can't watch in a video. You can't watch in game tape. You can't watch. There is a little bit of, I'm trying to be mindful with my words because I don't want it to sound disrespectful, but there is that sort of David versus Goliath type of mentality that comes into these things of like, we're coming into this as the underdog. Let's go out and punch him right in the face. And it happens a lot. It's not just Austin that's going through, you know, it gave up that result. It's happened a lot. It's happened to us at the national team level. It's happened to us at the youth national team level. It's happened at the club level across the board. It is just something you've got to be ready for. And the game comes quick. The game gets a little faster, a little more feisty, and they weren't able to get up for it.
Yeah, I think one of the skills that when I'm coaching, and I know you and I talk about it, not necessarily on camera, but off of it, it's game management, like the skill. And I know we talked about it with regard in reference to the U.S. and their game against Holland in particular, managing the game and understanding how to solve problems when the things that you want to do are being taken away. How do you then exploit what they're giving you? And when I think about this Austin FC game in particular, they didn't manage the game very well. And Josh could have made a sub at halftime to take him off and to protect him, but he didn't have any depth. So now you're putting probably another player out of position into that to hope that it gets better. And you hope that the guy with a halftime is going to respond. And then he ends up what of an own goal. If you haven't seen it, go look it up. It's quite special.
Somebody in the comments already said, Jimmy, explain it. I mean, also I would say too, that when I look at this game though, and the games that you're mentioning, well, I'll actually bring it back just for this game. All the mistakes that were made from Austin FC's perspective, and this is where I think they can gain a little bit of perspective because and lose some of the emotion, is the fact that all of the goals given up are correctable, right? The guy just needs to be a little bit tighter here. The entry pass into, you know, Nick Lima could have like closed down the one entry pass over the top. He didn't. He let the guy get across. You know, like little things that are easily correctable. And I think that's a promising sign for Austin and just for MLS teams in particular in these competitions where it's just, okay, it wasn't like we got outplayed or that now we could talk about Tigres and Orlando, where Orlando survived down at the El Vulcan, the volcano where Tigres play their stadium. But in this one, I just thought that these are easy fixes, right? Yeah, they got a couple chances, but it wasn't like they were overwhelmed in anything. Now what I wanted to bring up when you were saying before about
going down there in these hostile environments. I think for certain clubs, of course, and maybe this is shifting even for our Liga MX teams, is the fact that there was, when we were playing, it felt more like if you lost to an MLS team or you lost to it was embarrassing. Like, oh my God, Americans don't even know how to play the sport, right? It was still kind of in that space. And there was no way they were going to do everything they possibly could to make sure they didn't lose to an American team. And now that's shifting a little bit to your David and Goliath. So you go down to Haiti and you play a smaller club that a lot of people haven't heard of before. And they go and they get, and when you look at the result without really knowing how it played out, you're like, yeah, that's an ass slapping, you know? So that's not a good look for Austin FC and for the league, of course. But that one felt more like these guys want to just prove that they're better than MLS in a different type of way and more David versus Goliath. But when you think about the Mexican league teams and when we play against them, it is like completely beneath them to even lose to us. And that's changing, right? Everything's starting to level out a bit. And obviously with the Sounders winning the CONCACAF Champions League last season for the first time, hopefully that'll happen again. But let's pivot now to Tigres versus Orlando, because Orlando did go down there and manage the game, but they needed their goalkeeper, Pedro Gallese, to stand on his head and make a couple good saves. And, you know, if I wonder, so here's my thing. It ends up 0-0, so they're going to go back to Orlando for leg 2. But I wonder what that Orlando team does if they had given up that first goal. Can they manage it and keep it at 1-0, or would Tigres go on to score 3, very similar to what the Haitian team did to Austin? That's what I'm interested in. Like, what version of Orlando would we have seen? Could they have just kept it at 1-0? And I don't know if they could have, because I just think that would have opened up the floodgates. So that's where I'm a little bit like, Tigres was the better team on the night. They might be the better team in leg 2, but you can't, count out this Orlando team that won the Open Cup last year and definitely know how to manage these types of tournaments. And then I want to get into Philly, who I thought were actually the better team against Alianza down in El Salvador, created better chances, didn't take their chances, but looked like the better team. And then Vancouver won 5-0 against Real España from Honduras. But they were Vancouver, the only team to score out of all the other games from MLS's perspective. Nobody else scored. So I don't know if that's a concern for you or which game you want to focus on, Heath. But yeah, Austin's got some work, but I think all the other, well, I can't say Tigres and Orlando. That one's a bit of a coin flip for me. But I think Philly will get through at home in leg 2. And obviously Vancouver's going to go through.
Yeah, I think if you look at contextually, 0-0s away from home, like you got to be pretty happy about that, right?
Totally.
But Vancouver getting their job done at home, and then you obviously have same thing if LAFC can play a 0-0 against LDA or La Liga Deportiva Alajuelense, and
look at you.
And, I actually, funny enough, a friend of mine had grown up in their system. Actually, I don't know if maybe you know him. Do you know Kurt Morsink?
Yeah, of course. He played with me in Kansas City.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So Kurt, so we went to high school together and at IMG, and he was at the soccer academy and did some training with us in the residency program, and he came out of that youth system. So one of the first jerseys I had ever had gifted to me was that club. Was prideful that I knew somebody other than Saprissa at the time. But yeah, if they can get a 0, they're happy. Yes, they've got a ton of firepower, but you go away from home, you want to be able to get that type of result. And then so I think really when I'm looking at this, it's essentially only Austin that I think is in trouble. They're going to have a big hill to climb. I do think Orlando could maybe work something. But even if they're not the better team at home, something different,
Yeah, and with Gallese between the sticks, I mean, the guy's an incredible goalkeeper and definitely challenging for MLS Goalkeeper of the Year every season.
Yeah.
So if he stands on his head like he does pretty consistently, they're going to always have a chance. But if Andre Pierre-Gignac, the number 10 and captain for Tigres, gets his finishing boots on, he found himself in a couple of good spots in leg 1. It could be lights out. And yeah, I'm curious. That should be a great game. I'm actually really looking forward to that one.